Okay, my name is Yvette White Brumsey, and I am doing an interview for my gender communications class. And I have the former president of Black Pride, and she's going to answer the questions for me. My first question is: as a child, you were socialized as feminine. I'm sorry, as a child, were you socialized as feminine or allowed to express your masculinity?
I think for the most part, I am a child of the 70s and 80s, so at that time, more feminine than masculine.
Okay, so you were you a tomboy,
Yes, I was a tomboy, yes.
and your family didn't have a problem with that?
No, I think for the most part, my mom she was okay with it as long as I put on my, jewelry, my earrings, and,
Oh,
my mini skirts and all of those things. So I was pretty versatile as a tomboy. So I wore skirts and heels and, all those things that were associated with, being feminine. And then I also went outside and played and jumped and skipped and did all the things that boys did, and was into breakdancing a lot, and into competitive sports a lot. So
mm,
I had both of those things going on.
that's
So
good. That's good. Well, now the second question in the LBG community, do you see more masculine lesbians communicating like men? And kind of how do if that's yet a yes, how do you see that happening?
what do you mean as far as communicating? I see more so studs, they communicate. I'm not for sure if it's so much as they're communicating as men, other than the regular slang, what's up man, all that kind of stuff. So as far as communication, like what do you mean?
Well, if you notice how men communicate, it's been said that men sit side by side and talk a lot,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they don't look at each other a lot, even if they're having an intimate conversation.
Hmm.
Where women, we like you and I, we're sitting here, we're looking at each other,
Right.
we might do this or whatever.
Hmm.
So, but in the gay community, do you see women who exude more masculine energy acting or their behavior appears to be more like a man's?
I think for some studs, I think that there are some behaviors and characteristics that are more of the male characteristics that they do exhibit. If it's not looking, at each other face to face, if it is more or less side by side, those are the things that do take place. I've never really kind of looked at it as if they're communicating as men or as women. I just kind of take each person
Mm-hmm.
and look at how they communicate as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think what I mean though is you kind of said that. You said
mhm.
that they go, "Hey, what's up, man?"
Yeah.
They dap instead of
Yeah.
hug,
Right.
and
And then there are some who give hugs. There
mm-hmm.
are some studs who do give hugs, and there are some studs who don't. But I think that there are so many different categories of how one would see themselves as being a stud and how one chooses to communicate in our
Mm-hmm.
community, because you do have your studs and your hard studs, and you have your soft studs.
Mm-hmm.
So there are just so many different levels
Mm-hmm.
of being a stud and communicating out here in the community.
Mm-hmm. Now, what stereotypes do you think lesbians have based on how a woman does her gender, masculine or feminine? For example, I identify as a femme, or I will be called a femme. I don't really like the labels,
Hmm.
but we have to have something to describe what we are.
Right.
And so I consider myself feminine,
Right.
and you consider yourself kind of androgynous, correct?
Yeah, yeah, more or less. I don't consider myself a stud. I don't consider myself a femme. I'm a woman. I am
Mm-hmm.
me. I think I embrace both, male and feminine, you know, energy. So yes,
But do you
definitely.
see stereotypes though,
Oh,
based
definitely.
on masculine and feminine in your?
I do. I see it within relationships. I see it in how people, treat me. I see it how women, in relationships, choose to see others and treat me. So it's more or less there's a role and an expectation that, if you identify or if you dress as more of the male dominant, you know, in that more male dominant, then you will be treated as if you are taking on that stud role.
Mm-hmm.
Take out the trash, pay the
Mm.
bills, all of that hetero thinking
Mm-hmm.
that we put into our homosexual lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few people who really think outside the box and don't try to put you in those categories and
Mm-hmm.
have those expectations. I am on the outwardly appearance stud, but um I cook. you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do those things that are associated with being a femme or a wife or what have you, only because I don't see myself in, and I don't put myself in those boxes.
Boxes. Mm-hmm.
So I'm a woman and I like to cook. At the same time, I can, take out the trash. At the same time, I could do other things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
is just who I am. And I think that we don't look at who a person is in the community when we're looking at relationships with people. We look at, where can I put this person in this category, and this is what they should do. And if
Mm-hmm.
they come outside of that box, then they are, something's wrong with them. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, that
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel uncomfortable because I don't know what to do with you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so
Yeah, yeah.
most definitely.
Now, what do you think causes a lesbian that is not male identified, that doesn't feel like she is a man on the
Hmm.
inside,
Hmm.
to decide to present herself as masculine?
That's a good question. Um, I think it goes to a lot of things. Um, I think that some women have grown up as tomboys, have had this whole, they had brothers around or they have had friends around who wore the baggy jeans or wore jeans or slacks or had to the backs, and it was just a culture. It was
Mm-hmm.
just who they were,
Mm-hmm.
and they fit very well and very comfortable in their t-shirts and their jeans and their
Mm-hmm.
tennis shoes.
Mm. So it's more of
Um,
them being comfortable.
yeah,
That's what they
that was just,
feel comfortable
yeah,
doing.
right.
Well, that makes
You
sense.
wear what you feel comfortable in,
Yeah, and we
and
all
you
do that.
identify.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is me. I'm baggy jeans, or I'm, jeans and a t-shirt type of person, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm dress shirt and tie or a bow tie type of person. Even if I don't feel like I'm masculine inside,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to be masculine inside to, you know, put on this shirt and this
Mm-hmm.
tie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if I put it on, I'd still look feminine.
Right,
Because
and you
I'm
would feel sexy and empowered and
hopefully.
all of those things. So it's the clothes really don't make who you are. You
That's
make
a
who
good
you
point.
are.
That's a good point. Now, when you decided to emulate masculinity, whom did you choose as a standard and why?
um Man, my fathers, my stepfather and my biological fathers have been two men in my life who've been very strong men. They always smell good. They always look good. They were always, suit and tie men, and wore a nice hat. So as growing up, I always admired that,
Mm-hmm.
and always thought that that was, just, oh, a man that smells good. That's number
Mm-hmm.
one. You always should smell good.
Mm-hmm.
You should always be well groomed. You should always have your Stacy Adams shoes on,
Mm-hmm.
or that was the only shoe at that time that I really identified with. But I am definitely a shoe person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So being a
Yeah, those
female,
are
and
nice shoes.
yeah, so I think a person's shoes tells a lot about them and where they
Mm-hmm.
go and how they step.
Mm-hmm.
To their dress and to how they choose to present themselves,
Mm-hmm.
as well as how and what they see when they look in the mirror.
So that's why you chose them, because you liked how they presented themselves to the world with their outward appearance as well as being good men with their families and community.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Now, what are some areas of concern that you have when it comes to women and men communicating in the community, the LGBT community?
Well, I think that my concerns is that we definitely don't communicate well with one another. We don't communicate our differences. We don't communicate. It's this hidden code of how you're supposed to posture and how you're supposed to be. And if there were two women, let's say for instance, I do a lot of promoting and I pass out flyers, and a lot of times what I come up against is that more of the aggressive stud expects to be approached first, and so that's something that coming in and being out in this community, and you're really just trying to pass out the information and hey, how you doing, and and people get easily offended just by this one little small thing, and it's, well, why did she give you the flyer first? Well, why did she give you the flyer first? So then the film feels underappreciated and not seen, and then this person, this stud feels like, well, you didn't come to me first, so that kind of communication is very confusing for me because it's immature in a sense, but and I don't mean it as an insult, and if I'm insulting anyone or offending anyone, I apologize. But that kind of communication, I don't understand.
So are you saying we have a lot of walls up,
we have
a lot of rules in place?
Yeah,
and we're not
unspoken rules, unspoken things that who is to know?
So, well, what do you think are some of the things that society as a whole can learn from gender communication in the LGBT community? And also, this is the last question, but could you also tie it into, what do you think would help us as far as being able to communicate better?
I think we just need to bring some of those walls down, and really, no matter how petty the scenario is, or how you want a person to approach you, or how you want a person to speak to you, or who should speak first. I think we have to get rid of a lot of our hetero thinking if we want to be understood as an LGBT community.
So are you saying that we need to start to learning how to communicate, like
Start
I'm
to
taking
learn.
this class,
Yeah.
and then putting that into practice, teaching others,
Yeah.
so that we can learn how to communicate better,
Yeah.
and not look to the hetero community to give us an example,
Right.
but to develop these things for ourselves.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, we can do that.
We can if we really, remain consistent with it, and we actually really do that, But I see that as being a barrier to further, advancements in our community. We will continue to have these barriers of communication to the point where we have this big wall around us as a community, and no one really knows how to communicate, how to get through to the LGBT community.
But do you think it's an African American thing? Do you see these same things happening in the white LGBT community?
I think that there are barriers in all communities. Because I am African American, of course, I face those things more often within my own community, and I think I'm less sensitive to being in other cultures and other communities, because I can go up and I can speak and I can say whatever it is I want to. But I think in the community in which I'm working in and my work is for, I think I would like to see better communication, a better understanding of what and how the community can work either together, and how we can work together to communicate better, so that we can all understand what each other are either coming from, where we're going, what we want to do, and convey it in a message that is universally understood.
So, but do you think that the crux of all of our problems could be helped at least with better communication?
Oh, definitely. Communication is.
So that's a good place for us to start. So
Yeah.
maybe in the future we can do some stuff together on communicating,
Yeah.
learning how to communicate better.
Yeah, I
Thank
think that's
you.
the key.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
All right.